Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about 10 more horror movies that I highly recommend. And with that, let's get to the list.
Whiskey for the pain.
Together is a 2025 supernatural body horror movie. Written and directed by Michael Shanks in his directorial debut, it stars Dave Franco, Alison Brie, and Damon Herriman. Years into their relationship, a couple find themselves at a crossroads as they move to the country. With tensions flaring, an encounter with an unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh.
You know, this could be the beginning.
You roll over, then you're on my hair.
Of something wonderful.
Tim.
So I was fortunate enough to see this at an early premiere, and I just am through the moon for this. This is definitely one of my favorites this year so far. It is so fun, so entertaining, so likable on so many levels, but at the same time, it is definitely disturbing, uncomfortable. I mean, there are some wild body horror elements in this. But the real shining star of this is the chemistry between Dave Franco and Alison Brie. And if you're not aware, they're actually married. They are a couple and have been together for a very long time. And in Hollywood, that's something, because a lot of the relationships just don't last that long. But you can tell that they still are very happily together. And it just jumps off the screen in this. Like when they get in fights or things like that, it feels completely real. Whereas at the same time, when they show and express love for each other, it is very clear that it feels like a real emotion. But I really had a good time with this movie. It's well written. It takes you on a real roller coaster ride of emotions, and it gets creepy and spooky at times as well. But this is some of the best practical body horror I have seen in a very long time. I mean, it's right up there with The Substance as far as the insane stuff that they do on screen. So I just think this movie is great. And it opens up in theaters this week, and it's one that I highly recommend. New Life is a 2023 horror movie, written and directed by John Rossman. It stars Sonia Walger, Haley Aaron, and Tony Amendola. A mysterious woman on the run and a resourceful fixer assigned to bring her in. Their two unique stories twist and turn, linking together, and the stakes of their pursuit rise to apocalyptic proportions.
Where are we at with this?
It's already spiraling out of control. Your job is to bring in Jessica Murdoch alive, or if necessary, dead.
So I gotta be really coy about how I talk about this one. I really don't want to spoil it, because this goes in some crazy directions and is much more over the top, more savage, more brutal, more all of the things than I ever thought it was going to be. Because the first part of this movie, for probably the first third of it, is fairly slow and very mysterious, doesn't really give you a lot of clues on where it's going or what exactly is going on. But that's by design. You just have to be patient with it, because if you can get through that and kind of it's setting up this situation, it's a slow burn sort of thing. It really does ramp up in the second half, and it goes off the rails in the final act. Because I've tried to watch this before. I've had a couple of you guys recommend it to me a while ago, and I tried watching it, but it just really didn't grab my attention. And so, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes in, I was just like, yeah, I'll come back to this later. I'm not feeling this right now. Sometimes that'll be just because I'm not in the right headspace for a slow burn. But sometimes it's a movie that just never really gets there, doesn't really grab me. And if it doesn't grab me, I'm not going to recommend it to you guys. But this movie did more than grab me. Like, I ended up loving this movie by the end. So as long as you can stay patient with it and get through that setup, I'm telling you, this movie gets brutal, it gets violent, it gets gory, gross, over the top, it gets bleak and dark and really twisted, but it is one that I think you definitely should add to your list. Monster Island, also known as Ikan, is a 2025 Japanese-UK horror movie. Directed by Mike Willen, it stars Dean Fujioka, Callum Woodhouse, and Alan Maxon. Set in the Pacific in 1942, a Japanese soldier and British prisoner of war are stranded on a deserted island and hunted by a deadly creature, so the two mortal enemies must come together to survive the unknown.
This thing comes back. We need to be ready for it. You understand?
Here's a brand new one that just dropped onto Shudder this past week, and I had a great time with it. It's very fun. It really feels like an old school creature feature, like one of the classic black and white sci-fi horror movies that we got a lot of in like the 1950s and stuff. But it's also mixed with stuff that feels like that 80s horror movies, because everything is practical and the creature is definitely wearing like a rubber suit. But it's a well done one, a well made one. But it also is something that you have to be in for this kind of thing. You got to be in the mood for an old school feeling creature feature, because this is a pretty low budget movie and there's not a ton to the story. It's a pretty basic setup and story. It's really just these two characters that are at war and supposed to kill each other, but that are now on this island together and have no other choice but to stick together to survive. And it's pretty interesting as well because neither of them speak each other's language. And so throughout the entire movie, they don't learn each other's language. It's not like you've seen movies like this before where they have a lot of time together and eventually they learn each other's language. No, this is a situation where they're thrown on this island, have to survive right away, and don't speak each other's language, period. And so it's interesting watching them figure out a way to still communicate and work together in this. But like I said, it's still a pretty simple story. You kind of see what you get. There isn't some underlying message. It doesn't get overly complicated. It is what it is. It's a fun creature feature with some gore and violence. It definitely ramps that up, goes over the top, gets super ultra gory at times, but it's in that fun, a little bit on the campy side, practical effect way. But it's one of those movies that if you go into it with the right expectations and you're a fan of indie, small budget kind of films that don't necessarily have the biggest budgets to make everything look super real, I think you could have a lot of fun with this one, because I definitely did. I am a big fan of that old school creature feature type of stuff, and we don't get enough of that anymore in my opinion. And so to see a little movie like this just drop onto Shudder is absolutely fantastic.
Maybe Death's not actually coming for our family. Because that would be crazy.
Final Destination Bloodlines is a 2025 supernatural horror movie. Directed by Zach Lebowski and Adam Stein. It stars Breck Basinger, Teo Briines, and Richard Harmon. Plagued by reoccurring violent nightmares, a college student returns home to find the one person who can break the cycle and save her family from the horrific fate that inevitably awaits them. I talked about this when it first dropped into theaters. I had such a great time with it. I think this movie is so fun and the best in the franchise, in my opinion, probably since the first film. But the reason I'm talking about it again here on this video is that it drops on August 1st onto HBO Max. So if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, now's a great time, because as long as you have HBO, which there's a bunch of other really good content right now on HBO, but if you have HBO, it's included with your membership. But this movie is everything I want a Final Destination movie to be. It doesn't take itself too serious, but yet it has characters that are still interesting, that you root for on some level, but at the same time, you're enjoying seeing them die in these creative, wild ways. It's so over the top, extremely gory, and it has enough camp to it that it's just fun, because this isn't a movie that thinks it's highbrow, that has some deep message to share or anything like that. This is just a fun popcorn kind of horror movie. And that's what the Final Destination movies have always been and what they should always be. And so I love the fact that they leaned into that once again with this and did a really good job of it too, because it has a good budget. The special effects and everything look really good. I'm not saying everything looks like a $200 million movie, but it's not a $200 million movie. So yeah, there's a few little chinks in the armor, so to speak, but if you're going to see a Final Destination movie and you're picking apart the special effects or the CGI that's used in places here and there, you might be just not watching the right kind of movie for you. I also have said this before, but I will say it again. It was really amazing to see the send-off and the moment that Tony Todd got in this film. It was just such a special moment for all of us horror fans that have just grown up watching him in so many amazing roles. So I think this movie was a great time. It's really entertaining. It's exciting. It's intense. It's over the top and absolutely worth checking out.
We have to look on the inside.
The Home is a 2025 psychological horror movie, co-written and directed by James DeMonaco. It stars Pete Davidson, John Glover, and Bruce Altman. A troubled young man starts working at a retirement home, but he soon begins to realize the residents and caretakers harbor sinister secrets.
There's something very wrong with this place. Something terribly wrong.
I went and saw this yesterday in theaters. It just came out a week or so ago. Without much fanfare. I haven't really heard anybody talk about it or really anybody review it. And for some of this movie, I was like, okay, I get it. It's kind of slow. It doesn't really have anything that is super exciting right away. I think Pete Davidson's performance is a bit on the woody side. Like, he's not the greatest actor. Maybe he will be someday, or maybe he is in some roles. Just in this, especially for the first half of the movie, I just thought his performance wasn't gripping. It wasn't pulling me in. And just the movie in general felt like, okay, I know where this is going. All right, I've seen things like this before. But then it kind of takes a twist. And even though that twist I kind of anticipated, it continues to shift and continues to change. And ultimately, this movie goes off the rails. And it's one of those movies that the final act was so good that it made every bit of any flaw or any problems I had with the movie just fade away. And to me, it made it definitely worth seeing. Now, I won't say that you should necessarily go spend a bunch of money to see this one in theaters. So don't get me wrong. But at a matinee for a few bucks, or definitely when it's streaming, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this movie because it just goes aggro. It gets gory. It gets bizarre as hell. And it's just violent. And there's just a lot of really fun things that it does, while also kind of not taking itself too serious. And for some of this, I thought that it was, and that was kind of my problem with it. I was like, man, I see where this is going. You know, yeah, it's got this message it's trying to get across. No, this movie is not doing that. So I'm telling you, if you're like me anyway, you'll be very surprised by where this movie goes. It in some ways, it kind of feels like two movies. So the first 2/3 of this movie are pretty much kind of in the middle of the road, you know, not anything special, but not bad, just kind of okay. But then it's that final act that really takes it up a notch, and I think it's one you definitely should keep an eye out for.
Hello, Eddie. You're in my car.
Locked is a 2025 psychological horror thriller directed by David Yarovesky. It's a remake of the 2019 Argentinian film 4x4 and stars Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins. A thief breaking into a luxury SUV realizes that he has slipped into a sophisticated game of psychological horror.
Help me! Do I have your attention now?
I've been raving about this movie since I saw it in theaters earlier this year. And it's been on a few videos I've made. I just really, really think this movie is great. And once more people see it, I think it's gonna really start to get buzz. And so that's why I brought it up again this week, because it just dropped on Hulu, Disney Plus. So Now, hopefully more people will finally be able to see this, but I'm telling you, it is so much fun. If you're a fan of horror thrillers, there's so much here to love. For one, it's got Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter himself, as well as Bill Skarsgård, who plays Pennywise. I mean, it's got these two icons that have done so many amazing roles and really iconic ones in horror thrillers. So having the two of them going up against each other is such a great time. But this is such an interesting movie because on the surface, the setup of it doesn't seem like it's going to be all that exciting and that intense. But I'm telling you, they do a masterful job of really keeping it heart-pounding and keeping the tension through the roof. Because it has elements of Saw in it because of this wild car trap that Anthony Hopkins' character has created. It's super weird and dark and twisted, more macabre than it seems like it would be. Definitely keeps you off kilter and guessing, and gets really dark and twisted at times, much more than I thought it would as well. So if you have yet to see Locked, do yourself a favor and make this the next thing that you watch. Clown in a Cornfield is a 2025 slasher horror movie. Directed by Eli Craig, it's based on the 2020 novel of the same name by Adam Cesar, and stars Katie Douglas, Aaron Abrams, and Kevin Durand. A fading Midwestern town in which Frendo the Clown, a symbol of bygone success, reemerges as a terrifying scourge.
You okay?
So this movie is a lot of fun. It was one, though, that I wasn't necessarily telling everyone it was a must-go see in theaters kind of thing, because I felt like it is one of those that would be just as much fun, just as good to see at home, almost better. Because when you go see it in theaters, there's a lot of built-up anticipation and pressure a movie has to live up to. Whereas if you're just chilling at home and turn on Shudder, you're like, oh, hey, cool, this movie's on. You're going to kind of see it for what it is. And I think this movie will work even better in that setting. And so that's why I'm talking about it again this week, because it drops onto Shudder on August 8th. And I think it's really going to get some buzz. People are really going to have a great time with this because it's not what you're expecting. It is not just a simple slasher like it seems like it's going to be from the trailer. They're hiding some stuff. This movie goes in directions and does some unique things. But with that being said, I mean, this is not a game changer. And I know I hear you guys out there, those of you that for whatever reason, me saying game changer bothers you. Sorry. It's just how I talk. But yeah, it's not a game changer. It's not a movie that's going to just reinvent horror and like it's a must or any of that. It's just a fun popcorn kind of movie that's well shot, looks good. The characters are fun to watch. The actors do a great job. I mean, everything in this is just a good time. But it's absolutely not one to take overly serious or pick apart. Just not that kind of film. There is countless other movies that fit in that category, but we still need these popcorn movies that you could watch with your 13-year-old and just have a blast with, and that's exactly where this fits. So I think with a bowl of popcorn and your friends or family around you, you'll have an absolute blast. Wolfen is a 1981 crime horror movie directed by Michael Wadley. It stars Albert Finney, Diane Venora, Gregory Hines, and Edward James Olmos. The story follows a city cop who has been assigned to uncover what is behind a series of brutal murders.
There's not a trace, not a speck of metal. Nothing softer could have ripped and ravaged like this.
Is it an animal?
Well, it ain't human.
This is one of my favorite classic movies that fits into that creature, sort of werewolfy, but in its own kind of lane. but it's one of my favorites from this era, and it's wild to me how little is talked about, how forgotten in a lot of ways it is. And especially younger crowds, younger people, I guarantee you they don't know about this and haven't seen it. And it's a real shame because it's not only a fun horror movie, it's just a well-made movie in general with a fantastic cast. It's unique and does some different kind of things and goes in directions, especially story-wise, that you don't see done very often. It really has its own flavor to a creature feature type of horror. I also love the crime detective element. It's very fun in this, that mystery quality that it has. And even though it is dated, yes, the special effects, some of the stuff you might find a little bit funny or silly if you're a bit younger. It gives it charm and style, the color palette, the way they shoot it, everything that's done in it that feels so early 80s, late 70s really works for this movie. It doesn't necessarily work for everything, but I think in the way that this is put together, it still very much works. So if you're younger, or if for whatever reason you've never seen Wolfen, or if you've seen it but it's been a while, I think now is a fantastic time to check it out.
Oh, fuck.
The Monkey is a 2025 black comedy horror movie, written and directed by Osgood Perkins and based on the 1980 short story by Stephen King. It stars Theo James, Tatiana Maslany, and Christian Convery. When twin brothers find their father's old monkey toy in the attic, a series of gruesome deaths begin. So the siblings decide to throw away the toy and move on with their lives, and grow apart over the years.
I did everything I could to make it go the fuck away. But it had other plans.
This is one of those movies that it either worked for you or it didn't. It really kind of felt like it fits in that category with a movie like Malignant, where I loved it, and I know a lot of other horror fans that love it, and then there was a lot of people that just absolutely despised it, hated it. This is really in that same world because I think it's the same type of sense of humor and style, and it just isn't something that registers for everyone. It's not so much that you don't understand it, but it just doesn't work for you. You know, it's not something that clicks that funny bone or triggers that reaction of enjoyment. Instead, it just is annoying and off-putting. But I just loved the quirky charm that this movie comes at you with. It's so bizarre, over the top, really, really gory, but done all in a black, comedic, funny way. It's twisted, uncomfortable, bizarre, weird. And I've heard so many people say that, well, for the first 2/3 of the movie, I was okay with it, but then the end just lost me. And I'm like, then it definitely wasn't for you, because the end is the best part of this movie. Like, that's when it really leans into this campy, weird sense of humor that I think is black humor, but really funny, kind of macabre humor. But yes, it's dumb. There is definitely a cringy, cheesy quality to this, but so was there in Malignant. And that's what I mean by it isn't necessarily something that's going to work for everyone. But either way, I figured I would mention it again this week because on the 7th of August, it drops onto Hulu or Disney+. So you'll get a chance to watch it at home if you've been passing on it, didn't want to spend the whatever it was to rent, or didn't want to go out to a theater to see it, or whatever. Now, as long as you have a membership with Hulu or Disney+, you can watch it at home for free. Satan's Little Helper is a 2004 horror movie, written and directed by Jeff Lieberman. It stars Alexander Brickell, Catherine Winnick, and Amanda Plummer. A naive young boy unknowingly becomes a pawn for a serial killer.
Is all that stuff to take people up, kill them, and spill their guts out? Awesome! A pregnant baby! Bonus points!
So like I try to do with most of my videos, I wrap them up with something fun, and in this case, I think it's a classic. It's definitely not the highest of quality movie. It is campy, it is cheesy, but that's the charm and the beauty of it. It's absolutely one to not overthink and just enjoy your popcorn with. But I love the style of it. I love how weird and off-putting it is. Everything feels a bit unhinged, just slightly off. Nothing at all feels normal or right in this, which is something that I really, really enjoy. And it's one of those that I saw so long ago, I had totally forgot that I had even seen this. And it wasn't until I was maybe halfway through and I started going, okay, I remember this. I have seen this before. But it didn't even matter because I had forgotten most of it, and it was just such a fun movie regardless of any of that. So it's one that I think is a fantastic rewatch. It's one that really should be watched in the Halloween season. But since I just checked it out on the last drive-in with Joe Bob Briggs over on Shudder, I figured I would mention it this week. But it's one that I think no matter what, you should keep in mind for the Halloween season, because I think it would just be so much fun that time of year. But if you've never seen it, I think it's a great time. It's zany and weird, but in a very, very enjoyable, entertaining way. And I think it's a perfect pick for this Saturday night. So do yourself a favor this weekend, pick one of the movies off of this list, grab your popcorn and your candy, and enjoy! And like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. And I'll see you all next time.